In transformational coaching, we have one goal. One goal, that's it. If you make it any more complicated than that, you're always going to struggle, which means you won't have the certainty, you won't have the magnetism, you can't get clients, and you can't build a business. And let me tell you, there's so much complication out there in the coaching market. People are arguing about and searching for the wrong things. Now, what you're about to see is a segment out of a paid program with a small group of coaches that went through not only our online certification program, but our live 5-day in-person deep dive transformational program. And we're talking about this essential goal of coaching. But I didn't want to just have you looking at the slide presentation the whole time. So I just threw it behind some B-roll that I had lying around. It's the first time I've ever done that. Hopefully you like it.
I've never seen a human have a profound shift that's complicated. Ever. It's always moving from complicated to simple. I've never had that thought. What creates massive shifts in realizations? It's always from complicated to simple. Yet, we are spending the majority of our lives based on our programming going from simple to complicated and then trying to solve complicated with complicated, and that's why we spin out. The answers are always going to be simple. Truth is always simple. Managing the truth could be difficult, or hard rather than difficult, because of our emotions, but it's always simple. It's always simple. And I would say most people either miss the simplicity in the truth or dismiss the simplicity in the truth because they either don't want to acknowledge it, they don't want to surrender to it, or they dismiss it because they've decided that it's got to be as hard as the problem feels. If the problem feels hard, then the solution must be hard. It must be complicated. If the problem's complicated, the solution must be complicated. And what we need to understand, and then us as transformational coaches need to be guides for and advocates for, is the complication is really created in the moving away from simple. If we take a look at a bullseye, the center of the bullseye is simple. The further we get away from the bullseye, every ring further out is more and more complication. And so our job as transformational coaches is to take people from the outer rings of complication and guide them toward the inner point of simplicity. That's the journey. From complicated to simplicity, or from complicated to simple, is the journey. And I'm intentionally not using the word complex. A lot of people think complicated and complex are interchangeable, but they're not. Complex at a scientific level, like the scientific definition of complex, is something that's moving all the time. It's dynamic. And we are complex. We're complex beings with simple truth. That's why so much of this is challenging, and why so much of our search, like there's a difference between searching for simple and searching for easy. What almost everybody is doing is searching for easy. What easy is a universal rule that operates all the time. So we want to know what to say all the time to get somebody to say yes to a coaching package. We want to know what to do all the time when we have fear that's going to remove the fear. We want to know what to say all the time inside of relationships that will work all the time and will never not work. We're searching for easy. We're searching for static rules that apply to complex humans. It never, ever will work that way, yet that's what we're searching for. So we're searching for easy rules to solve our complicated problems. That's why we as coaches need to be committed to simple truth and moving people out of complication while understanding complexity is an ever-moving, dynamic reality. But how can we be complex and still committed to simple while trying to undo all the problems that complication has created? Hopefully these labels that I'm using are landing for you and you can understand the distinctions between simple and easy, hard and complicated, complicated and complex. Because those foundational understandings are what we need to be committed to in our journey of coaching. And then we can help anybody through anything. Anybody through anything. If they're willing, we can help. And of course, if they're not willing, we can't do anything to support them because they're not willing. But if they're willing, we can help because we know there are only a few truths that we're after. And if you map this onto a clock, you give me anybody who's on any area of the outer ring of the clock. In other words, you can put somebody at any hour of the clock or any tick mark in between the hours of the clock or any area even in between the tick marks. My mission is to take them to the center of the clock because that's where their truth is. So it doesn't matter if I have somebody who's at 12 o'clock, my mission is to go from 12 o'clock to the center truth. You give me somebody who's at 4 o'clock, my mission is to go from 4 o'clock to the center of their truth, 6:30 to the center of their truth. If we understand as coaches that our only goal is to take them from where they are to the center of their truth, it's actually not that difficult. Place them anywhere around the clock, and our goal is to get them to the center. That's so much easier than to try to understand how to fix the millions and millions and millions of problems inside the problem. No, we're going from problem to solution. We're going from outside to inside, and that's so much more simple if we understand that journey. That's why this process of transformational coaching, the more you stay in it, the simpler it gets. In the beginning, when you enter this whole world, it seems to get more and more complicated. When I was watching Jack process all these people in the room, my mind was blowing up because I was thinking, how does he know the right thing to say to somebody who wants help with their goals, and then something else to say to somebody who was raped as a child, and something else to say to somebody who's dealing with grief? Like, how does he understand? And as I was trying to intellectually jump into the vault of knowledge, I was trying to figure out how all these things relate individually to the problem. Meaning, how can I know what to say to somebody who has this issue? And I stayed in that space of complication, I would say, for about 2 or 3 or 4 years, until one day I realized it's going back now. It's almost like a diamond, right? In the beginning of my journey, it was going outward, and all the information just seemed to be pulling me further and further and further away as I was collecting all this intellectual knowledge. I was excited about all of it, but it just kept growing and growing and growing. And then I hit this point where I realized, whoa, what this really is about is simplicity. And then it got smaller and smaller and smaller in terms of what I actually needed to understand. But we have to go through this process of it getting wider and wider and bigger, and for us to try to figure out, how do we learn all of these things? We have to go through that process to appreciate its simplicity as a coach, because most people that we will come across are on this journey where it's getting wider and wider and more challenging. And how do I deal with grief over here and grief over here and sadness over here and limiting beliefs over here? Of our human programming is so immense, but we have to understand and go through and experience all of that personally first, and then as a coach, for us to understand, wow, this is actually simple. So give me all of your complication, and my job now is to enter where you are. So I got to see your 4:30 or 9 o'clock version of the world and perspective of the world. And I know human truth. I know how limiting beliefs work. I know how pain works. I know these fundamental truths at a foundational level. And now you can drop me with my client anywhere in the woods. And as soon as I get my bearings and realize where we are and realize where the center of the clock is, now I just got to navigate the woods, but they're all virtually the same. That's the cool thing. It doesn't matter how complicated our problems seem or how lost we seem as a human, the journey toward that truth is virtually the same. Why? Because we're using the magnet of the truth to pull people toward it. We're not using the complication of the problems to try to find the solutions. So you can put us in any area of the forest, and if I can hear that beacon over there and I can know what that's like, then I can use the magnetism of the beacon that I'm trying to go toward to get me out of this complication. I don't need to climb this particular tree and know how to uproot the stuff that I'm all around from this place. I don't need to know that. I need to know the beacon of human spirit. I need to know the essence of truth, and we can use that to then pull ourselves with our clients to that place. And that's so awesome.
Now, if you like this video, check out that one. It's the entire first module of our Neurotransformational Coaching Certification Program, all for free. Now, in order to control anything, you have to understand it. So if you want to change human behavior, both for yourself and in the lives of your clients, you have to understand these foundational principles.